What if Abeloth returned during the Clone Wars? Let's begin today's story at the end of the Mortis arc during the Clone Wars. Anakin has just killed the son, and the father took his own life, meaning that the gods of Mortis are no more. This caused a ripple effect across the galaxy, all the way in the distant clutter of black holes called the Maw. Upon the father's death, the mother, also known as Abeloth, was released from her eternal prison. Her imprisonment was tied to the father, and with his death, she was free to commit absolute chaos and tyranny. She returns to the galaxy after thousands of years of captivity, fit with a vengeance and lust to take life. Stories about Abeloth have been lost throughout time. The average person had never heard of her. Even most of the Jedi hadn't heard the tale of Abeloth. But she is a demented being. She is the mother of the Force. After Abeloth was released from prison, she began to wreak absolute havoc throughout the galaxy. Abeloth had such a strong presence in the Force that she could destroy planets at will. With unfathomable power at her command, she unleashed devastation on a scale never before witnessed. Her malevolent presence cast a shadow over entire systems as she descended upon unsuspecting planets, leaving no survivors. Her goal was to destroy the galaxy and then rebuild it under her image and with her guidance. Planetary defenses crumbled like sandcastles before a tsunami as her dark powers were released. There was no stopping her. You simply accepted death. She was able to use her tendrils of darkness to reach into the hearts of countless beings, turning them into agents of destruction. She turned entire planets against each other. Brothers murdered brothers. Planets burned under her relentless onslaught. Millions would perish in agonizing torment as Abeloth reveled in the carnage, her insatiable hunger for destruction driving her forward. There was no end in sight. Palpatine was absolutely horrified when he learned of her return. He had only heard the stories, mainly from Plagueis, whose master Tenebrous had studied the Mother of the Force extensively. He heard reports that Abeloth was destroying planets throughout the Outer Rim, showing no mercy and demonstrating her power in the Force. This was at the height of the Clone Wars, and the Separatists and Republic had been battling for the fate of the galaxy. But this completely disrupted everything. All their plans were put on hold until the Dark Entity was destroyed. Palpatine saw that Abeloth was getting closer and closer to the Separatist capital world, Raxus. He couldn't allow this to fall. This planet was home to dozens of senators, council members, and most importantly, valuable and essential information. Sidious travels to Raxus alongside Dooku, where they lead the Separatists in setting up a gigantic defense force. The Dark Lord of the Sith had organized a mass retreat of their forces from war, all in an effort to set up defense against Abeloth. The Separatists created one of the largest defensive fleets in history, with dozens of massive cruisers and starfighters at the ready. But Abeloth had already conjured a large fleet herself from her travels, turning any being she desired into agents for her to use whenever she wanted. She enters the system and launches her entire fleet, completely overrunning and destroying the Separatist fleet. It got absolutely obliterated before she even stepped foot on the ground. Sidious and Dooku had no words. They readied their defenses and prayed that the droids would be enough. But as Abeloth arrived from the ground, she simply raised her arms and the Force did her bidding. All of the droids' weapons turned against themselves, and when Abeloth clenched her fists, the entire droid army is destroyed. It was the most power ever wielded by a single individual in history. Sidious didn't know what to do. For the first time in his life, he was speechless. One of Abeloth's most powerful abilities was using avatar bodies to complete her bidding. She had no desire in using too much energy and strength to win her battles. She reaches out with the Force and takes control of Count Dooku's body. She was able to freely move around and she located Sidious, igniting his crimson blade. Dooku strikes down Sidious without a care in the world. The Dark Lord was dead. Before Abeloth returns to her true form, she ensures that Dooku dies by his own blade. She had won without breaking a sweat. The entire planet of Raxus and Separatist movement was destroyed. Back at the Jedi Temple, the Council hears about Abeloth's return and her destruction throughout the galaxy. Yoda was especially terrified, having heard numerous stories throughout his long life. He understood the true danger they were in. The Senate were panicking, the Chancellor had disappeared, and every day they were receiving reports of another planet falling. They needed to do something. Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka explained their experience on Mortis with the gods, something they hadn't had enough time to fully divulge until now. Yoda was curious, and he deduced that with the father's death, the mother had been released. He believed that it would be useful to travel back to Mortis to uncover information. Anakin and Ahsoka leave at once. The planet had originally been destroyed, but because Anakin is the chosen one and the father wanted him to rule the place, there was a hidden mechanism that allowed the planet to return through the Force, specifically for Anakin. As they arrived, they looked at the lush planet where they were trapped on for a few days, only weeks earlier. Ahsoka has an idea. The daughter's spirit lives within her. There must be a temporary way to release the spirit. They travel to the bathing springs of Mortis, where a giant pool of water stretches across the cliffline. Ahsoka lays in the water and shuts her eyes as the Force begins to whisper. When she lays in the water, all of her light energy pours into the pool and the daughter appears before Anakin, similar to the presence of a Force ghost. The daughter welcomes Anakin back to Mortis. She was as kind as ever. But Anakin explains to her that the mother has returned and is destroying the entire Outer Rim. When Anakin simply mentions the mother, the daughter became visibly terrified. Fear was painted across her face. She told Anakin they needed to be cautious. If they don't act properly, she will destroy everyone. Anakin was confused. He thought that the mother was trying to get revenge over her children's deaths. The daughter laughed at the idea, explaining that it's been thousands of years since she showed any interest in them. Anakin asked what happened. Why was Abeloth the way she is? As they walk, the daughter explains the past. Abeloth first lived as the Servant, a mortal woman who served the powerful ones on a jungle planet over 100,000 years before the Clone Wars. She had a peaceful life and was morally strong and an empathetic woman. She eventually fell in love with the father, and he with her. The daughter explains that her father wanted to live the rest of eternity with her. She helped keep peace between the family of the Ones, as the daughter and brother always fought. Over the course of a few years, she became a loving member of the family. Unfortunately, she was still mortal. She grew old, and while the father and their children lived on, she feared that she would lose her precious family. In a desperate attempt to hold on to the life that she loved so dearly, she drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge. Her actions corrupted her, transforming the mother into the twisted, immortal entity known as Abeloth. The father was devastated, and in order to save the galaxy from her twisted power, the Ones used the Force to trap her in the Maw, tying her life to the father's, knowing that he wouldn't die for another 100,000 years. Anakin was shocked and actually felt a little sorry for her, but he also understood that she needed to die. He finally asks how to kill her. The daughter laughs and says it's ironic. The only being powerful enough to defeat Abeloth is the Chosen One. This made sense. Anakin was the only being who could subdue and control the son and daughter. He had Mortis powers. The daughter directs Anakin to the father's grave, where he retrieves the Mortis dagger. She explains to him that the Mortis dagger won't kill her, but it will make her immobile, giving him enough time to use his Force power and kill her. Anakin nods as they travel back to the bathing spring on Mortis. Finding Ahsoka's body, the daughter wishes Anakin good luck. And with that, she disappears and Ahsoka awakens, asking her master if he got the information they came for. He simply nodded. Anakin and Ahsoka leave Mortis and go back to Coruscant, where Anakin tells the council what they learned. This mainly aligned with what Yoda knew of her, and they were now encouraged, knowing that there was still hope for victory. They began to set up the defenses, knowing that at some point in the near future, Abeloth would make her move. Only a few systems over, Abeloth continued her triumph. She was in the Inner Rim and committing murder on a scale never seen before. The screams of millions echoed through the void as Abeloth's insatiable hunger for chaos and death consumes everything in its path. Abeloth has traveled to every corner of the galaxy and finally reached her last destination. Coruscant stood as the final bastion against the relentless advance. The Jedi gathered their forces to defend their homeworld. Abeloth and her forces arrived and began to spit fire upon the Republic fleet in space, destroying them instantly. Abeloth's unfathomable power proved too formidable to be contained. As Abeloth's forces descended upon Coruscant's surface like a ravenous horde, chaos erupted in the streets below. The clones struggled to defend, blaster fire and death raining everywhere. Abeloth stood at the center, commanding her troops, screaming at them to ensure victory. The Jedi tried to defend their planet, slicing down each invader, but they knew the only way to gain victory would be to kill Abeloth herself. Lightsabers clashed against her dark armor, but Abeloth proved to be an unstoppable force. She cut down legions of Jedi with each swing of her twisted tendrils. The Jedi Council all combined their powers and strength, believing that they only stood a chance if they worked together. Attacking from each side, the 12 Masters worked as one, each swinging their lightsabers and using the Force to keep her in place. They thought they might be able to defeat her, but she simply raised her hands and they were all flown backwards. She laughed as she marched closer to them. In a desperate gambit, the Jedi Council turned their powers inward, focusing their Force powers and trying to grab a hold of her, the 12 most powerful Jedi in the galaxy. But as they did this, lightning emerged from all parts of her and the entire council was struck with the dark power. Falling straight to the floor, they screamed in pain. She relished in their suffering, standing above them and laughing as they struggled for breath. But just as victory seemed within Abeloth's grasp, a figure emerged from the shadows, a lone Jedi standing against the tide of darkness. Anakin leaped forward and began to swing his lightsaber at the beast. Abeloth laughed as he approached, however she didn't expect this level of power. She underestimated him and he was able to gain the upper hand very quickly. He channeled the full extent of his chosen one abilities, and with a swift and decisive strike, Anakin Skywalker plunged the dagger of Mortis into Abeloth's back, the ancient weapon rendering her immobile. As Abeloth screeched in agony, Anakin reached out with the Force. He recalled the daughter's words, only he had the ability to destroy her. Anakin was born from the Force itself, this is why he was created. In one final push, Anakin screamed as the Force completely took over Abeloth and she fell to the floor dead. With her death, her entire army of followers fell to the floor and her seductive spell wore off. They looked around confused, not remembering their actions over the last few weeks. Anakin breathed a sigh of relief. The council stand to their feet and congratulate him. He has done well. Looking around at the carnage, no one really knew what to do. The long process of rebuilding began, but it would take centuries to return to what it once was. Thousands of Jedi had been killed in the final battle, and the Senate chambers were completely destroyed. Meeting at the Jedi Temple, the seemingly final standing building in the galaxy, the Senate worked hard to ensure the future for humanity. It was assumed that Palpatine died in the battle, but no one would ever know for sure as his body was never recovered. Anakin would be granted the rank of Master, but at this point it meant nothing. He and Padme worked tirelessly to help the people of Coruscant and any other stragglers throughout the galaxy. Their love remained, despite the war, and although they claimed victory, it was at great cost. Anakin Skywalker had fulfilled his destiny and become the chosen one, as he embarked on a long mission with his friends and family to help rebuild the galaxy, following Abeloth's torment. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Anakin Stayed on Mortis and What If Anakin Started His Own Jedi Order. Please check out our membership page if you would like to support the channel, it really helps us out. Thank you all for watching and may the Force be with you.